All right, it's good to be with you again today. Today, let's talk about change. Let's talk about how you can create positive change in your relationship. And I'm going to go over 3 different places in which change can occur. That as you learn how to apply a growth in these 3 areas, you can increase change in your relationship exponentially quicker than you might normally. So stay tuned. So can you imagine the impact that positive change can have in your life if you're able to create that in your relationship, right? Our most closely connected relationships have the largest possibility for impact, for good or for negative in our lives. And can you imagine the difference that it can make if that most important relationship in your world has the ability to change and grow and adapt and evolve in a way that's more and more effective and fulfilling for you and for your partner? That's why this topic is so important. And I'm excited to talk with you more about this change process. So if you haven't already, subscribe to our channel, turn on that little bell, make sure you get all of our content that we're putting out. Our mission is to help couples thrive, and we want your relationship to improve the best that it can. And we're trying to put out content regularly that'll help your relationship grow. So subscribe to us, turn on the bell, and we look forward to supporting your relationship more and more each day. So let's talk about this change concept, right? So when we're trying to grow or create change, it has to begin with self-awareness, right? We've got to be aware of what are those things that I'm trying to grow, that I'm trying to change, not just in my partner, but also in myself. Because I am the thing that I have the most control over, right? So the ideal situation is that my partner is learning and growing by looking at themselves, and that I'm learning and growing by looking at myself. And today we're going to talk about that piece, the change that you can be, how you can be the change in your relationship. So when you're trying to create change in your relationship, there's 3 key places that change can occur. The first is in hindsight. The second is in the here and now. And the third is preventative, right? So the third is attempting to prevent things that may come in the future, right? So let's talk about hindsight for a minute, because this is where a lot of growth potential can happen that I really feel like a lot of couples miss, right? So in hindsight, what hindsight means is that I'm looking backwards and I'm studying a situation that occurred already, and I'm using that already have occurred situation to grow. Right? So I'm taking a look at that situation in the history, and I'm looking for things like, what did I do well in that situation? What are things that I wish I could have done better? What are some things that if I had done better may have changed the way that the whole thing kind of turned out? Right? I want to take a look at these types of questions, gathering both what I'm doing well, as well as those things that I'm not doing so well, and exploring the possibility of a variety of things maybe I could have done differently that I want to try next time. I'm not sure if it'll help it go better or worse. I haven't tried them yet, right? But they're just possibilities for ways in which I can be different in the future, right? So asking these types of questions. And let me make this a little bit more real life for you. Let's say that the goal that I have is to change how defensive I am in arguments with my spouse, right? So let's say that I've looked at myself and I realize I can be pretty defensive, especially when I'm in a conflict with my spouse, right? So if I can be pretty defensive, and I know this about myself, defensiveness being that she tries to give me feedback, and I'm just focused on like telling her that she's wrong and defending why I'm right? And switching the topic maybe to something else, kind of avoiding the real issues. It leaves her feeling misunderstood. It leaves her feeling unvalidated, right? Like it's not really helpful for our relationship. So let's say that I have this tendency for defensiveness, and I want to apply learning and understanding and growth and insight from a hindsight perspective. It would mean that after we've had one of these conflicts, in which I'm pretty positive I got defensive, I want to look backwards and say, what created the defensiveness? Right? What was going on for me that I became defensive? And I might look at things like some key words that she said, right? When she said this, man, that's when I got defensive, right? I might identify some key words that she said. I might identify a circumstance I was in. It was late at night, or I was tired, or I was hungry, or something like that. I want to gather whatever information I can looking backwards and saying, what maybe triggered that defensiveness in me? Why did I become so defensive? And then I might ask myself, what did my defensiveness look like, right? When I became defensive, what were the things that I'm not satisfied with about myself? What did I do? What did I say? What did I become? Right? I might have become accusatory, maybe critical toward her. I might have shut down and withdrawn, completely disengaged kind of the argument. I might have shot some hurtful things, maybe some low blows in the relationship. A low blow is when I attack something that I know is sensitive about her to kind of shift the topic away from me, to shift a focus away from me, right? I might have completely distracted, kind of ignored what she was trying to share with me, and ignorantly and stubbornly kind of shifted it into another place or a non-response at all. Whatever it is, right, that I'm looking back and I'm like, I don't like that version of you, Nevin. I don't love when you become defensive like that. This is learning in hindsight, right? I'm looking backwards and I'm trying to gather data. And my purpose for looking backwards and gathering data is different than the way that most couples do it. Because when most couples look backwards, they're looking back about their partner. They're looking back and they're saying, here's all the things that my spouse did, my wife did, that made me defensive, right? So I'm looking backwards and I'm analyzing more about my partner, right? And most of us don't look back and analyze more about ourselves. And it's a shame, it's too bad. Because I am the thing that I have the most control over changing, right? So I want to look back in hindsight and take a look at me, right? What triggered me? What was going on in the relationship that I became defensive, right? What are those factors that were at play? And how did I become when I was defensive? How did my defensiveness show up this time, right? Like in my criticism and my responses and my withdraw, right? Like in my pointed kind of low blow statements, right? What was it that my defensive looked like as I take a look back in hindsight? I want to gather all that information. And again, my purpose is for doing that. My purpose is taking a look at what can I do the same in the next situation that I felt like I did well in this situation. And what are those things that I want to do different in the next situation that comes up that I felt like I didn't do so well in this situation, right? Like I want to gather both of those. The things that I did that were a win, right? It was like, good job, Nevin, you're making progress. And the things that I did that represent this kind of repeated pattern that I want to change, I want to grow, I want to adapt away from, right? I want to know both those things. And I might look back also and explore some other possible options. I wonder how it would have gone if I did this instead, or if I did that instead, right? These are kind of neutral things I don't know a lot about yet. Maybe I read about a strategy or a tactic, right? Or I'm thinking about what I know about my spouse and what I know about myself, and I want to try on a new behavior. I'm not sure if it's going to go well yet or not, right? But looking in hindsight can be a great way to explore that, to take a look at what if I had done this different, right? What if I would have said this thing at that point, right? What if I would have asked more questions instead of jumping into my own defense, right? What if I would have taken a breath, right? And calm myself for a second instead of being reactive so quickly, right? Or what if I would have chosen to have that conversation with her, around my lunch break instead of late at night when I was already tired, right? These types of what ifs can be helpful to pull into my next situation that I might have a conflict like this, right? So those three things as I look in hindsight. What are the things I did well? What are the things that I wish I would have done different, that I definitely want to do different? They didn't go so well, those things that I'm not proud of. And then the third, what are other possibilities, right? What are possibilities for things that I might try in the future that I don't know a lot about yet? I don't know if they'll go well or not, but I want to try them on. Right, so this is learning in hindsight. Now you'll notice that all of that focus is on me. There might be a little bit on her. Strategy as far as like a good time to approach a conversation like this, or not a good time to approach a conversation like this, or something that I'm recognizing about her that's sensitive that I want to try to avoid in the way that I talk in the future. Right? There might be a little bit about her, but most of it's about me. And if two partners are doing that, they're both kind of learning in hindsight about themselves, the possibility for the relationship to grow is limitless, right? This relationship can get so healthy if both people are willing to look at themselves. But just one person willing to look at themselves can help move the relationship in a healthier direction as well, right? It's not as ideal as two at a time, but one at a time. Me, I can be the change in my relationship. I can affect growth if I'm willing to look at me. So a lot of that learning and adaptation and growth in hindsight is going to be focused on me. What did I do well? What did I not do well? And what are those things that I haven't tried out yet that might be possibilities for next time I'm in this situation to maybe have a different outcome, right? Exploring those possibilities. Okay, so that's hindsight. And a lot of learning and growth in relationships occurs in hindsight. That can be frustrating sometimes for couples because it feels like I keep repeating the same problem. Right? And then it might start to convince you, gosh, we keep falling into these same ruts. I keep getting defensive. You keep getting critical. These things blow up and it's never going to change. Maybe we have a compatibility issue. Maybe I married the wrong person, right? Like maybe I'm with somebody that's just not my soulmate, right? We can get into catastrophic conclusions like that often. And I want to reassure you, right, that a lot of times learning happens in hindsight. And it's not a bad thing that we keep repeating patterns and problems if we're willing to learn in hindsight. If we're willing to take that conflict a day later when I've kind of cooled down a little bit and break it down for myself. What am I proud of? What are the things I need to do different? And what are some possibilities I can explore for next time? If we're doing that, if we're applying that kind of learning about ourselves in hindsight, you can't help but grow. Over time, you're going to notice that you fall into those same patterns a little less frequently, a little less severely, and further apart with a quicker recovery. That's what we want, right? A little less often, a little less severe, quicker recovery. That's how people grow, right? That's how relationships grow. So don't get too discouraged if you find yourself falling into this trap, right? You can still create positive change in your relationship through hindsight, right? Through issues still occurring if you apply yourself to this type of learning. Okay, so let's go to the present, here and now. Here and now learning, right? Trying to figure out how do I apply here and now learning. Well, here and now can only really occur as I get good at hindsight and I'm practicing kind of looking back at what the issues are and making goals for myself that in the next time I'm in this conflict, here's what I want to try, right? So the here and now adaptation, learning, and growth is really dependent upon my willingness to look in hindsight. Because if I never look in hindsight, in the here and now, I'm always just going to be reactive. I'm going to be mindlessly instead of mindfully. I'm going to be mindlessly responding and reacting to my current situations, probably in the same patterns and in the same ways that I already have. And that's not change at all. That's staying exactly the same and hoping that my partner will be the change. And we want to be the change. We want to be part of the change, right? So in the here and now, in order for me to learn and adapt and to grow, I've got to be applying myself to hindsight learning already. And the here and now learning is the application of that hindsight learning in the present moment, right? So here I am now in that next conflict with my spouse. And I said last time, one of the things that I think I did really well is I stayed engaged, let's say, right? Like I stayed engaged. I didn't withdraw too quickly. And sometimes I can do that. I can shut down and go silent and withdraw too quickly, right? So in the here and now, this time, I know that I want to keep practicing that. I want to try to stay engaged a little longer, right? So that's one thing I'm going to do in the here and now. I've recognized we're in a conflict, and I'm going to try to do that good thing that I did last time again, right? Let's say also that as I looked in hindsight, I noticed that one of the things I didn't do so well is listening, right? So I was really quick to kind of jump in and say my defensive things and then disengage, right? And I stayed in longer than I typically do, but I still disengaged faster than I wanted to, right? So in the here and now, I've recognized I'm in a conflict And one of the things I did pretty well last time is staying engaged longer in the interaction with my wife. So I'm trying to do that again. And this time I'm like ding, 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 ding in my brain. Oh yeah, I'm going to try to listen, right? So I'm trying to hold myself back from getting defensive so quickly this time. In the here and now, I'm trying to listen a little bit more, right? And I'm focused on that listening. And I notice as I'm listening, it's softening my spouse a little bit. She doesn't seem so angry, so critical. She doesn't seem so frustrated with me, that it's softening a little bit as I listen a little bit more. And I'm taking that learning and I'm applying it. Okay, this seems to make a difference. This seems to be helpful, right? And then I might try on one of those things that I didn't do last time, but just looking back in hindsight, one of those explorative things, right? One of those things that I'm like, I should try this. I don't know if it's going to go well or not go well. And let's say one of the things that I came up with is finding the good in my spouse, right? In the middle of a conflict, I want to try to focus my mind on something that's good about her and something I appreciate about her and bring it up in my next conflict, right? So now I'm in the here and now and we're in the middle of this argument, and I might do that. I might say, thank you for trying to help me understand. There's a lot of people in my life who haven't stuck with me in conflict like this, and I'm grateful you care about me enough to do it. Right? So I might try that out and see how that goes, right? In the here and now. All of this is learning in the here and now, but it requires hindsight growth, right? It requires me to take a look at past conflicts and ask myself the question, what went well, what didn't go well, and what can I do differently, right? So that in the here and now, I can try this learning and growth in the present. I can try on those behaviors that I did pretty well last time that I want to do again, like listening and staying engaged a little bit longer, staying engaged in the conflict a little bit longer. I can also try on those things that I feel like I didn't do so well last time, like listening a little longer. And then third, I can try on the explorative thing, right? Which was trying to highlight a positive quality in her that I rarely kind of do when we're in conflicts. So all three of those things I'm applying in the here and now, and I'm taking a look at the impact that that's having. Is it making a difference? Trying to grow in the here and now, right? Well, eventually, as I get good at conflicts, I'll be able to start to move into the third category, which is preventative, right? So we have learning and growing in hindsight, learning and growing in the present moment, and learning and growing in the future, right? Preventative. Moving into what can I do, right? In future focus, how can I notice when we're headed into a conflict? And what are some things that I might do to even help curb the conflict before the conflict becomes problematic or hurtful to our relationship? Taking the things that I'm learning in hindsight and in the present moment and applying that understanding to future situations, right? Future circumstances that may turn into a conflict that's injurious, right? That creates hurt or disconnect in our relationship. Now, we'll never get perfect. It'll never be the situation that you'll always be able to prevent conflicts, that you'll never need to practice in the here and now. How do I adapt, grow, and change? Or in hindsight, how can I adapt and grow and change based on what happened, right? It'll never get to the point where you're perfect. There's no such thing. No such thing as a perfect human being anyway, and no such thing as a perfect relationship. So there will always be conflicts that kind of sneak past preventative into the here and now. And there may even be some of those, I would suggest lots of those, that will sneak past the here and now too, that you'll still need to learn in hindsight. Shoot, I could have done that differently. I fell back into one of my old patterns this time, right? So I don't want to set you up to feel like that you can ever get to a place in preventative where you'll be able to 100% prevent conflicts. That doesn't exist, right? Conflicts are going to occur from time to time. Our goal is that as we do conflict, we grow. We grow closer together and we grow more healthy and productive as an individual, right? And if we can grow through conflicts, conflicts aren't negative at that point. Conflicts can create problems, but the problems only last as long as I'm unwilling to learn, right? As I'm willing to learn from the conflicts actually become educational. They become an opportunity to grow as an individual and to grow the health and wellness of our relationship. And that's how I want you to approach conflicts, right? So in the preventative then, getting back to that, off my tangent, back to preventative, right? In the preventative, I'm using the knowledge that I've gained in the here and now conflicts and in the hindsight conflicts. I'm using that knowledge to prevent, right? So I've learned that I don't do well when we talk about heated or tough topics late at night. And I don't do well when we do that when I'm starving, when I haven't eaten all day, right? And she doesn't do well when I spring it on her, right? When I just bring it up in a moment out of the blue, right? So I'm taking these things that I've learned, looking in hindsight and looking in the here and now, as conflicts occur, and I'm applying it to preventative. Those are some things that I can use to try to help reduce the severity of conflicts in the future, right? Picking situations that I'm more kind of emotionally and mentally charged up and ready to go. Situations where I've got a full belly, where I'm not hangry, right? And situations where I give her a little bit of notice. Hey, I wanted to revisit that finance thing that we were talking about before. When might be a good time for you that we can do that, right? So that I'm not springing it on her. And then as we go into the conflict, I'm going to apply my knowledge and awareness of I want to stay engaged. I want to try not to disengage too quickly. And I'm going to focus on listening a little bit better than I typically do. I want to listen a little longer to her side so that I'm not creating defensiveness back in her, just focused on my part, right? And I want to try to stay away from some of those low blows, right? I really have a goal this time as I go into this conflict in the here and now, right? I have this goal to not be so critical about issues that I think are sensitive to her, right? So I'm taking this preventative approach that next time I'm in a here and now conflict, I've set it up to go better, right? Based on the things that I've learned in the past. Well, what can happen is that couples over time, as they use conflicts as opportunities for self-refinement and relational refinement, as they use conflicts in this way, they're taking hindsight information, current information, and preventative information, and their relationship and their conflicts are getting better, right? They're happening less frequently. A severe conflict, it's happening less frequently. It's creating less damage when it occurs, and they're having a quicker recovery out of it. Why? Because they're using their conflicts as opportunities for growth, right? Whether it's looking backwards and saying, shoot, I wish I would have done different, or good job, I did a good job in these places. Whether it's in the present moment, right? In the moment, pausing in the conflict and saying, okay, what was I gonna do? What did I decide my goal was this time? It's game time, I'm in the middle of it, right? Like, what can I take from that hindsight and try out? Or preventative, right? There might be things that I can do to sideline a conflict before a conflict even needs to occur because of the things that I'm learning in order to apply to preventative, right? Another great tool for preventative is education, right? So whether this is self-help books, right? Like whether this is attending seminars, whether this is watching awesome YouTube videos like you are right now, right? Like whatever this might be, learning from friends or family, right? Preventative can be a great tool when you're willing to apply educational information to learn and grow as a preventative tool that can help you next time you're in the here and now in a conflict, right? That I can do that learning, apply it, try to apply it in the here and now, and maybe there's less to look back on that I wish I would have done differently, right? But if there are a few things, I can apply that to the here and now. And as I'm sandwiching the here and now conflicts between preventative learning, between preventative learning and between hindsight learning, this here and now opportunity for healing, growth, wellness, and conflict resolution, repair strategies, it gets way better, right? I'm sandwiching the here and now between preventative learning and historical learning. And that looking backwards and looking forwards allows my current to go better. So that's how you can be change in your relationship, right? This is just one more key principle and tool that you can take and apply to your relationship and grow your relationship in a healthy way. Now, if you're liking this content, we have a video course, speaking of preventative, called Optimal Growth. And that can be a great one to take a look at. It dives a little bit more into what are some of those things that you might look at in yourself, the things I'm doing well, the things I wish I would have done different, right? And some explorative ideas. So that optimal growth one is great. The whole video course, WHOLE, being whole, becoming whole in one, that video course is also a great one that talks about conflict resolution, communication. Our Maintaining Intimacy and Sex video module talks a lot about emotional intimacy, listening skills, right, like communication skills that you can apply to increasing the intimacy, especially the emotional intimacy in your relationship. So take a look at those, right? Those are video courses that can help, that we've produced and put out, that can help you apply that preventative learning to the here and now, and help you take a look at some of those hindsight principles that may be effective to applying to today. Now, there's one other video course I'll mention. It's the Beginning Anew video course, Beginning Anew. That Beginning Anew video course is taking a look hindsight in my relationships, other relationships that may predate this relationship, that might be having an impact on my relationship today because of what I've gone through in the past, right? And how we can learn and grow in hindsight for my current relationship from previous relationships, right? So check that one out too, especially if you feel like you've been through a few tough relationships and now you're really invested in making this one go well. So I hope all that information is helpful to you. Like I mentioned earlier, we love your willingness to support our channel by subscribing. So please subscribe, like this video, share this video, comment about this video. It really helps us learn and grow and understand those things that are important to you. The content that's valuable to you helps us pick topics for the future, as well as helps us fund this great work to try to help couples everywhere. So like us, subscribe, share, turn on the bell, all those things. We really appreciate your willingness to support us. And if you have questions, comments, we love responding to those. So stick those down in the comments and we'll go back and forth and chat a little bit. I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you enjoy a growing, healthy, healing relationship. And I look forward to being with you again soon to support that cause. Take care.